Hello guys, how are you doing? So today I'm here to talk about some of the questions that you may have as a as someone who is learning to code or someone who is trying to make a career in web development, programming. So I remember my days. I used to have so many questions. Some of them are right here. So this Discord channel I just created a few days ago. I think it was yesterday, and I have big plans for this Discord server. I hope to create a very engaging and productive Discord community, and I have been approached by a few of my students already. And here you can see he asked me some of these questions. So he suggested me to make some Q&A video blog, and I asked him, what questions do you have? And he sent me this list, and I found it extremely interesting. You see, a lot of these questions I used to have when I was new to coding. All right, and I'm sure most of you may also have the same questions. So today I'm no longer learning to code. It's been almost a decade already. So I'm going to share my experience with you, and I think it will be very helpful to you as well. All right, so you can see these 13 questions, they're really great. So I would like to make short YouTube videos explaining, answering each of these questions. So every day I will try to answer one of these questions. So it might take me 2 weeks, or maybe if there are some days I can't record, then maybe take a few more days. But yeah, pretty much every day I would try my best to answer these questions. All right, so you can see here the first question is what age you started programming and why you decided to become a computer programmer. Okay, really great question. So what is, now when it comes to age, yeah, I had the same questions when I was learning how to code. And yeah, most of the time you find answers in Google when you search like, how am I too old to learn how to code? And normally the questions are positive. They say, no, you're not old. Even if you're 60 years old, you're not old. And they're right. What they're saying is right. However, even though I used to get those answers, I always had this thing in mind that, well, I'm not a teenager anymore. By the way, when I learned to code, I was quite old. I'll share you that story a little later. So yeah, even though they say, no, you're not old, you may feel like, okay, I'm not a teenager anymore. So how do I compete with those guys? Because when you learn to code, when you go out there as a web developer, there will be a developer from all the ages, from teenage to the very mature people. So you may think I will never be able to catch up with them because they're young, they have time. In your case, you may be in your late 20s, late 30s, even 40s. So you may think, well, I will never be able to catch up with them or get better like them. But that's not true. And let me give you an example. For example, think of a welder, because someone's working in a factory. So a welder with 1 year experience, or let's say motor mechanic, you can take an example. So if a mechanic has 1 year experience and another mechanic has 10-15 years experience, okay, so obviously there will be difference. The one with the more experience, obviously he will be better at certain things. However, that doesn't make the other guy who has just 1 year experience, that doesn't make him any bad. He can do the job equally well, and sometimes maybe even I can do better than the one with 10 years experience. What you're going to do is same. If you have dedication, if you use a bit of your smartness, it's all about how you approach. All right, so you're not old, okay, so it doesn't matter. But as you get older, you may have a family, you may have children, and then you have other responsibilities. When you're younger age, you have lots of free time, right? As you get older, then you have to give time to your family and other things in life there are many more things that become important. So because of those things, you may get distracted, you may not be able to focus entirely. That's different. That's up to you. You have to be able to manage that, but otherwise no, age is not a factor. All right, so what is I did started. Now this is a really interesting in my case, because it's been like my first course I published in Udemy. That was, I think it was around 2016, and now so it's 22, so that's 8 years already. Right, so when I created my first course, I started learning to code, I think just above 1 year, 1.5 years. So what I'm saying is I had absolutely no idea about coding, okay, at that time, and I started learning to code. So obviously we all start with HTML, right? So HTML, a bit of a HTML, CSS, and PHP. So I started to learn to code all by myself. I started with HTML, CSS like everyone else, and after 1.5 years, I think just about 1 year, after that time, I was already recording and publishing my very first course. So you can see it doesn't take long, right? It doesn't take long, and even in short time you learn a lot. So it's all up to you. So what is I started programming. Now before you start programming, obviously you have to learn how to use computer, right? So in my case, I wasn't fortunate enough to learn computer in school. Back then, it wasn't that common. These days it is, but back then it wasn't. So I had already done my bachelor's degree in humanities and social science. It was not in computer. So I did my bachelor's degree, and I finished that, and still I didn't know how to use computer. Seriously, I didn't know. I didn't have Gmail. I never touched computer. So that was in my early 20s, and I had no idea what computer is. Okay, so people used to talk about that, and they started talking about computers. You have to learn computer, you can get a job, blah blah blah. And then I started thinking that, okay, what do you actually do in computer, and how do you get a job? Why would someone pay you to sit in front of a computer? I didn't know. And slowly I started to know that, okay, so you can do things like Microsoft Word, Excel. So if you can type faster, then you get a job, and in office you may do some data entry. That's what I came to know first. So yeah, when I started learning computer very late in my early 20s, and learning to programming, that was even late. That was like early 30s. All right, so I started very late. So when I first learned to use computers, so what I did is I went overseas. I traveled to a few countries for work and then study. So from my first job, I saved a couple of months' salary and bought a laptop. And then I started, obviously, a bit of a Microsoft Office, Word, all that stuff, a bit of a Photoshop, because back then internet wasn't that easily accessible. So obviously Photoshop is something you want to open up, touch up with the photos, play around. And doing all that, what I found very interesting, and I was quite addicted, I got addicted to, is video editing. All right, so I used to combine photos, short video clips taken from your mobile phone, and then make a video, like play some music in the background, write down the lyrics, and this use some photos slideshow to make videos using Windows Movie Maker, right? And then later I used a bit of Adobe Premiere as well to make a video editing, and I used to spend so many hours in a day doing video editing. If I could do that, then I would forget to even eat. So I used to love that, and I still do sometimes if I have to. I love video editing. So that's how I got really used to computers. And then, like I said, in my late early 30s, I started to code. Now, before I code, how I got into how I decided to become a programmer is that first I took a training to do graphic design. So, like I said, in my early days of using computer, I used to do some Photoshop. So I thought, if you want to make a career, then maybe graphic design is the way to go. That's what I thought. So I thought one day I will take a formal training and then become a professional graphic designer. So I decided, I had another career back then, not related to coding or computer or anything. I was just doing something else. So I took that course, 6-month course, took a certificate 3 in graphic design, and during that time I did a couple of projects, building posters, booklets, all that. And then to apply for graphic designer's job, you had to have a website. That's when I came to realize that I need to have a website, because website is once you have a website, you can showcase your projects, and then that's how you can put in your resumes, and then possibly employers would look at your projects. That's how I thought website is something I must learn how to make. And back then I started searching on computer, and even at that time I didn't really know that you can just go to YouTube and learn, type how to learn Photoshop, how to learn coding, how to make website. I didn't even have any idea about you can go to YouTube or just Google it and you get so much resources if you want to learn. I didn't even know that. I thought YouTube was just for watching videos, songs and movies. Really, I was quite dumb. You can tell me that. And probably because I started learning computer very late, so I wasn't tech savvy. But I always had this connection as soon as I heard about computers. And like I said, video editing was one of my favorite things. So yeah, that's how I realized that I need to learn how to make websites. Right, so I started doing some Googling, and then I came to know that WordPress is the way to go. Right, and then unfortunately, you see my life story. Unfortunately, I didn't have a very good internet access at that time. So I wanted to learn how to build websites, but I didn't have 24/7 internet access. So I Googled it, saying that how to build websites offline, right? And then they said that use WordPress, but you can install WordPress software locally in your computer, and then you can develop offline. All right, so that's how I started with WordPress. And then in the beginning, obviously, I just downloaded themes. First, I got used to the admin dashboard, all that. And then I could build awesome websites. Like you could use some premium themes, and then you can build absolutely amazing websites, right? It's really good looking website, lots of functionalities, drag and drop, so much fun with premium themes. You just feel like you got the superpower. You can build anything. So that's true. However, I reached a point that everything is great, but then I want this to work differently. I want it to look differently. I want this functionality. For example, instead of uploading one photo, I would like to upload multiple photos. Using that theme, it would be almost impossible, right? Unless you are able to customize the code. So first, the code I used to find to make some changes for that theme would be CSS, right? So when I copy that CSS, I didn't understand anything about that back then. So copy that CSS, put in the theme, and then the theme would certainly change. The navigation would look different, have different color, and that really fascinated me. Wow, that's really powerful, And that was just CSS. So that's when I realized that so many things, I feel like I couldn't do it because I had to somehow be able to update the theme, make the change in the code. Otherwise, even though you could build a great website, you couldn't make your own little things, but without them, it's just it didn't work, right? So then I realized that you have to actually learn how to code, right? And then that's how I started to learn how to code. And first thing was obviously HTML, and then my first experience with HTML is absolutely amazing. And I'm telling you this, when you learn when you write HTML code, first thing what you do is you write H1, some paragraphs, make the text bold, give the background color red, something like very simple. But when you do that and when you preview that in the browser, then you see something, right? At that moment, you should feel absolutely amazing. Okay. Now, I don't know if this can be applied to everyone, but in my experience, when you write some HTML and CSS and have a look at that on the page, have a look at the preview, you should be absolutely fascinated, because what you basically did is you created something out of nothing, right? Something out of nothing. You started with the empty code editor, you started writing some HTML, some CSS, and then when you open that up in the browser, you get this beautiful page, right? So maybe not so beautiful, but still you get something. So you sit in front of a computer with empty hand, and then you write some code, and you are able to produce something that you can show it to the rest of the world. How strong is that concept, right? So you should be really you should feel that. If you don't feel that, then maybe coding or programming is not for you, all right? It's straight away. But when you are able to create something out of nothing and you think, wow, that is amazing, this thing that I created out of nothing, now this can be served to the entire world. I can reach out to the entire world from sitting in front of a computer with nothing but this thinking, and then just writing some code, putting your thoughts into code, and then use that code to produce something for the rest of the world, right? So that concept should really fascinate you, and if that does happen to you, then you will definitely become a successful programmer or web developer. All right. So yeah, I started with HTML, CSS, and then my first programming language was PHP, and then but I didn't spend much time with the language itself, and then I jumped straight into Laravel, a framework. That was a mistake, right? That's why I still feel like I should go back and do PHP very well. Now I don't know if I will be doing that, but yeah. So always once you learn HTML and CSS, just focus on the programming language, not the frameworks, right? Okay, so did I answer this question? What age? Yeah, so early 30s I started learning how to code, and few years from that time, and I'm already doing a job as a web developer. I'm online instructor. I have created many courses. They are in UDEMY. So many hundreds of thousands of students have benefited from my content, so that makes me really proud. So don't worry if you are too young or too old to learn how to code. Okay, if you love it, if you like to create something out of nothing and that amazes you, then this is absolutely the right profession for you. All right. And then yeah, that is why I decided to become a computer programmer, because I always felt connected to computer. I was before coding, I was heavily into video editing, something creative, because that is also something creative, and programming also something extremely creative, because you sit in front of computer with nothing and then you build something amazing that you can share with the rest of the world, serve them, right? So that is the reason I decided to become a computer programmer. All right, so it's been almost 20 minutes. It's been very long, but as I said, my life story, I hope that gave you some positive energy. All right, now the next question is, what was your first programming language? So I gave you a bit of detail about that. It was PHP, but maybe I can go in a bit more detail and my struggle, because as a beginner trying to learn to code, oh my god, there are so many hundreds of books, online courses, paid and free both, so you get totally lost. You don't know where to which one to stick with, and that's a problem. It's good that we have lots of resources, but at the same time, when you have too many options, you get too confused and you end up wasting so much of your time. So in the next video I will talk about this, and then I will try to give you some tips so that you don't waste a lot of time and focus on learning a programming language in short and sweet way. By the way, this Discord channel I have just created, I will share you the link. I'm very new to Discord, I don't know much, so I have this link I will put in the description of this video. Join me in this Discord channel. I have some great plans here. I'm planning to share some valuable contents every now and then. Maybe I can offer you some free coupon codes as well for my courses. I can share the discount links almost every week, right? So many good things we can do as a community. So join me in this Discord channel. I will share the link with it will be in the description. All right, thank you.